Chapter 71 Is Segouzi a prophet? Second more. Laughter. What are you telling me? Demon Consort Morgan? Come. You come to tell me clearly. Where did I become a concubine? I'm the upright Queen Camelot of Britain. How come you become the enchantress in your mouth? Morgan raised his eyebrows, using his hands subconsciously. Oh, what's going on? Why Morgan's strength has grown. Morgan's grip was reduced. I just wanted to take a picture of Lot and let him know that he was not easy to mess with either. She didn't like the title of Demon Consort Morgan, but just about to say, she stopped at this time. She feels like she has caught something. Well, if you want to, Morgan thought in his mind. Then, she felt as if she understood something. My own dog, can you predict the future? If this is the case, then many things can make sense. Morgan recalled Lot's words she had overheard before, and made a slight comparison in his mind. Found that this may be true. I previously said that I overheard Lot knowing Altria's identity, and thought he had some organization behind him, to inquire about him. But now that he has been married to Lot for so long, he hasn't revealed any relationship with any organization. This in itself is very abnormal. Also, Morgan recalled when he met Lancelot, he knew the identity of Lancelot. At the same time, the surprise he showed was undisguised. It is impossible to perform that kind of astonishment. So put it all together. Lot didn't inquire about intelligence, but knew the future. He understands his future. Could it be that my dog is actually a prophet? He knows the future history, and he calls himself a concubine. Is it because on another timeline, he didn't know the history? Morgan thought in surprise. I thought about it carefully. If it wasn't for Lot to know the history, I never thought I would have a sister, and this younger sister will also pretend to be a man as a trainee knight. Merlin was in the process of pulling out the sword in the stone, so she must be the one who pulled out the sword. She became the king of Camelot. Then I will not be reconciled. And according to his unwillingness, he would definitely destroy his sister. Your own talents are still okay. Also, there are probably coloring dogs. Some of his ideas may come from prophecies, but even if he didn't know those futures, he was very creative at the beginning. Some ideas, even if you know your future, will not come up with them. For example, combat tactics, such as the management of territories, and the emphasis on infrastructure. I want to oppose Altria. He will definitely help. When the time comes, the two sides will really engage. Morgan shuddered. Sure enough, the will of the world is full of malice against the gods of Britain. Wait, if that's the case, does Lot's prediction actually represent the only vitality? Could it be? Thought of this, Morgan's strength to massage Lot became stronger. Laughter. You are very useful. Well, you have to show your ingenuity quickly. We can count on you for the future of Britain. Lot felt a little at a loss as he felt Morgan's kind of flattering massage. Then, he turned his head to face Morgan and asked, just tell me, what did you do? Did you lock Altria in the granary, or did you accidentally experiment with magic and blow up the walls of the chalk city? Up. Morgan's face changed, snapped. She patted Lot's back again. I wouldn't do that kind of stupid thing. My old lady kindly goes to give you a massage. You still think I got into trouble? Laughter. You owe you a fight. Lot was finally relieved by her shooting like this. Well, it doesn't seem to be a problem. Then, he scratched his head and said shyly, I'm sorry, am I not used to it? Sorry, I will definitely not doubt next time. No next time, Morgan said to Lot coldly. Then, feeling her anger still, she grabbed Lot's arm, and then gave a bite hard with a whoop. Lot just endured it with his teeth. Grinding his teeth fiercely, Morgan pinched his waist and said to Lot, in the future, even if you ask me to pinch your shoulders and beat your legs, I won't do it. Come on, dog, hurry up and beg me. If you beg me, I will relax a little bit. Lot scratched his head and said, If you don't do it for me, I can only find someone else. Look, dare you? Morgan shouted. Molesting my wife is really interesting. Dog, you are a real dog. Morgan cursed in his heart. At this moment, Lot smiled and pointed to Morgan's stomach. You said, I'll ask him to pinch my shoulders and legs, can I? Okay. What do you mean to my stomach? Morgan was taken aback for a moment. Then she knew who Lot was talking about. Oh, Gawain. That really works. Well, then teach him well. It can beat his father's legs, and it can also pinch my shoulders for his mother. Can. Morgan and Lot took a look. Then, the husband and wife made a tacit understanding to add a new task to the kid Gawain in the belly. Both have reached a satisfactory conclusion. It's just that Gawain is a little tired. But it doesn't matter. Gawain, what is that? Is a powerful knight. I believe it will adapt. Come on. Let me handle some things for you, Morgan said to Lot, and at the same time picked up some documents. Oh, don't worry, let me see the scenery first. Lot put his arms around Morgan's waist, and then came to the balcony. The palace of the Chalk City is one of the few places in the city that overlooks the whole city. When two people stand on the balcony, they can see the whole city clearly. Oh, luscious dog, look at how good the scenery of this Chalk City is. We must guard this place no matter what. Morgan lay in Lot's arms and said to him, well, of course, we will definitely guard this place. Look at the mountains outside the city, look at the houses in this city, look at the children playing on the street, look at the couple walking hand in hand. Look at this, Altria eating at the snack street, Look at Merlin in the prostitution. I can't bear to break this beauty. Why do I not want to defend the city anymore when I hear the last two? Morgan murmured silently. Ha ha. Lot couldn't help laughing. At this time, Morgan picked up a document. Chapter 72 Love Triangle. So exciting. First update. I overslept. Well, another king of England said he would come to ally with us. Lot. It seems that our strength is getting stronger and stronger. Morgan took the official letter and said to Lot with a little excitement. Lot didn't have much excitement. After all, the weight of the king in England in this era, similar to the daimyo during the Warring States period in Dongying. He didn't just occupy a small area on Orkney's side, and he was also called King Lot. The actual area is not as big as Tongliao. This is considered to be the stronger king in England, at least to the point where he can marry King Yaozef. Many of the remaining sites are not as good as Lot's previous site, he thought in his mind. But this is also a good thing. Our strength becomes stronger. After all, it is a good thing. I'm just a little curious about when the father of Gurney, who is known as the first beauty of this era, will come to take refuge in us. Morgan's expression in his arms froze. The first beauty, Gurney Vale? Is that woman better looking than me? Also, Segouzi, why did you mention him for no reason? Morgan just wanted to go to Lot to inquire about it. Come on, tell me, who is Gurney Vale? But at this moment, Lot's next sentence dispelled her question. Hey. But it's useless even if there's Gurney Vale. Altria is not King Arthur now, and she will not marry Neville to show that she is not a woman but a man. If you don't marry, then Gurney Vale will not cheat on Lancelot, and this love triangle won't hold. What's the situation? My sister went to marry a woman. That's my sister. How does she marry? Morgan, who was already here, made up for the scene of the wedding night. The scent of oranges can already be smelled in the nose. And it's more than just getting married between a girl and a girl. Then, this woman named Nevia had an affair with the father of Galahad, Lancelot. I rely on, you guys are too exciting. It's too open to play. Morgan had no doubts about what Lot was thinking of. What he said, except for some lack of confidence in himself, other things are reliable. So, if there is no lot to know about these futures, then my sister will be troubled by a triangle debt. And it still exists as a suffering master. Morgan made up for the relationship between the three people a little bit, and she instantly felt very grateful. Fortunately, he and Lot prevented this from happening. Otherwise, the story between these three people is estimated to become love and hatred that has been circulating for thousands of years. It even came out that what Lancelot actually liked the most was his sister, and for the sake of his sister, I guess I would come in contact with stories like Gurney Vale. Besides, it is up to her to decide on her own sister's emotional issues. Whether you like men or women, or you want to be single, these are all for her to decide. What must not be considered are political reasons. My sister, if I can't even do this, that's terrible. In short, his edible sister must not be involved in a love triangle. But then again, what's the matter with Galahad? Is this Lancelot so cruel? Yeah, although I don't expect you to be as loyal to love as a dog, to be single-minded to love her, and not to mess with flowers at all, and the maids around you don't touch this kind of thing. After all, such a good man is just a dog in the whole world. But your ethics should be similar to that of other male nobles. You are too low. Morgan, who knew only half of the situation, had a very low evaluation of Lancelot in his mind. At this moment, in a place in the Chalk City, Lancelot, who continued to observe the lives of the people, subconsciously sneezed twice. Is this someone scolding yourself? Lancelot rubbed his nose, thinking in his heart. At the same time, he reached out and rejected a girl who cared about him and handed him a handkerchief. As a virgin, it was a bit embarrassing to accept the girl's kindness. Walking on the streets of Camelot, he began to think about his next plan. What to do? Otherwise, go straight back to France? It's fast to go back anyway. It is not difficult to swim back in armor by yourself. Lancelot had just such thoughts in his mind, and then immediately shook his head. Forget this. I finally came from France in order to make a name in this island country. As a result, he came around and did nothing except for a fight with a knight who had a deep hatred with him inexplicably. Normal knight adventure. That is not done at all. According to the process of common knight's fame, it is either to defeat the evil lord who endangers the place, or to follow a certain lord to fight east and west, and obtain magnificent military exploits on the battlefield. Then in Britain, he found that he couldn't do it. To follow a certain lord? Oh, here is mainly Camelot's sphere of influence. I just went to a fight with someone, and now I say I want to follow each other. This is too shameless. And if it's other lords, I can't follow the devoted Gung, right? Also, go to defeat the evil lord of the place. Lancelot planned in the same way at the beginning. Then, he found that he hadn't done it yet, and these nobles were almost done by Morgan and Lot. It's not just those nobles who participated in the rebellion. Even other nobles, as long as they commit a crime, will also be punished. Now let alone the evil lord. Even ordinary criminals are hard to find. Lancelot once heard those civilians say that when King Lot entered the city, He told people to be fair. At least it seems that there is no problem with what he did. But you are fine. Then I have a big problem here. No one can fight anymore. Could it be possible that I should really kill the dragon or go heads up with Fu Taiging? Lancelot thought in his heart. And these two ideas. He felt that the difficulty was too great. The dragon is fine. Defeat Fu Taiging in the army. Lancelot didn't think he had this ability. Then really go to fight the dragon? And while he was thinking like this, a loud noise suddenly came from ahead. Quick, catch up. Come on. Grab him. Grab this person who wants to do nothing. Let's kill this guy who wants to do nothing. Lancelot looked up. A group of people, chasing a white hare, ran towards themselves. Boy, what is this battle? Lancelot was a little surprised. Chapter 73 Big Fudge Merlin is online again, second more. Although it was not the kind of evil night that Lancelot had expected. But since the criminal is already in front of him, of course don't let him go. Especially this kind of prostitution. It sounds very sinful. Lancelot would not let it go even more. He saw the white hare rushing towards him, and immediately stretched out his foot to face him in the direction of advancement. Trip you up. Slap. Merlin stumbled sturdily. Then, he was blocked by those people. Seeing Merlin being caught, those who caught him would certainly not let him go. I let you go whoring for nothing. You dare not give money in the prostitution. Hit. The crowd around Merlin was a beating. Lancelot was next to him, watching with the mood of watching the show at first. After all, he can be regarded as seeing what happened. Although I have never been to a prostitution, I still know it. Go over there and still don't pay. This white hare, it's really crumbs. Although he was in a depressed mood just now, he was still very happy to see the white prostitute being beaten. However, after watching for a while, he felt something was wrong. This guy was not hurt at all. What's the identity of this person? Lancelot speculated in his heart. At this time, the thugs of the prostitutes felt that they were almost fighting. After cursing a few words at Merlin, he left directly. After all, this white hare has had a hand addiction, and has not owed much money. If you really want to type something out of this person, it won't be easy. Recently, Lot and Morgan both value the security in the Chalk City. It would be no good to kill people. After these people walked past, Merlin stood up with a smile. Except for the dust on her body, Merlin didn't seem to have anything to do with it. He patted the dust on his body lightly, gave Lancelot a look helplessly, and said bitterly, "If you didn't give me a kick, I would have run away." I think any knight with a righteous heart, in the face of the situation just now, will take action to stop you. Because looking at Merlin's strength is definitely not like an ordinary person. Lancelot is also more cautious when speaking to him. Isn't that the day when the money is issued? If they don't catch up with me, I will return to them next time. Merlin answered Lancelot with a smile. Who are you? Seeing his expression like this, Lancelot felt that he was even less like an ordinary person. Then he asked Merlin about his identity. Oh, I am Merlin, Camelot's national teacher. Merlin put his hand on his back and answered Lancelot. Go Lin. Lancelot took a breath. Is this the economic problem in Camelot so big? Even the national teacher has to wait for the salary. Moreover, he owes money to the prostitution. He touched his chin and commented. Hearing what he said, Merlin was shocked. I thought you should be surprised at my identity. Then, he smiled and said to Lancelot, "Oh, the matter about my income has nothing to do with His Royal Highness Morgan. All of this is because I spent too much money on my own. Alas, last time with His Royal Highness Morgan, saying that it depends on the fact that I have been working for Camelot for so many years, and that it would give me more income. But it was rejected." What? Lancelot didn't know how to reply. How thick is this British man? This person spends all day in the prostitution house. I was so embarrassed to go to my boss and ask for a little more income. This is a good speaking superior who would agree to this condition. Lancelot thought for a while, and felt that neither Lot nor Morgan seemed to be so talkative. This Merlin's idea was destined to fail. At this moment, Merlin looked at Lancelot, narrowed his eyes and said to him, "Knight Lancelot, what do you plan to do next? Are you planning to go back to France desperately like this?" "Of course not," Lancelot retorted to Merlin subconsciously. "I will make my own reputation on this British island." "Really? What are you going to do?" "Fame is not something that can be made clear to the whole of Britain at one time," Merlin asked him. "I have my own swordsmanship. Even if I am not famous for a while, I will still be famous in the future." Lancelot is still very confident of his own strength. In search of opportunities, in addition to our own strength, sometimes we still need some opportunities. Merlin looked at Lancelot and made a seductive tone. "Can you help me find this opportunity?" Merlin just smiled, and did not answer Lancelot's words. But Lancelot understood the meaning. He can do it. Lancelot was a little moved, but he did not immediately agree. "During this time, I will not leave the Chalk City." "Mr. Goshi, I will tell you the answer to this matter." After being exposed by Lot last time that he was deceived by the nobles, he would not easily agree to do things now. He decided to think about it and talk about it. Seeing him leave, Merlin stroked his chin. "Oh, it looks like this young Lancelot is not good to deceive either," he said to himself. Although about the sword in the stone, the ultimate king became Morgan. However, his fighting spirit has not weakened at all. Although Altria hasn't become the king now, Merlin will not stop building his own team. Find a way to fudge Lancelot to his side. At that time, as long as there is a chance, a large number of teams of their own can be constructed in an instant. Okay, Lancelot's strength is very strong. Losing this combat power would be a great loss. Can't let Altria lose this combat power. And Altria at this moment. Well, although knights should not be picky about food, but the snacks in this chalk city are not as good as our barracks canteen. She took a snack and said with a slight frown, there is a saying how to say it. It is easy to change from frugality to luxury, but it is difficult to change from luxury to frugality. Altria's mouth is about to be tricked now. I really want to eat the little stoves of His Majesty Morgan and His Majesty Lot a few more times. Altria now really wants Morgan and Lot to assign her some more tasks to do. At that time, you can get the encouragement of delicious food. Chapter 74 His Majesty Morgan is really a magical calculation. 4K. At night, Morgan shrank in Lot's arms like a kitten. White as Jade's little feet were still moving on Lot's body to tease his husband. Lot looked at her smiling face, her teeth tickling with anger. 10 months. There are still 10 months. The remaining pregnancy has 9 months, and then go to sit for another month of confinement. Wait 10 months and see what I do with you. Lot yelled in his heart. Morgan didn't panic at all when he heard Lot's words. Even his feet became more presumptuous. She won't worry about this. According to Lot's own statement, he belonged to a goldfish in terms of holding grudges, and after 7 seconds, he would not remember anything. Therefore, he would never do anything forbearance. Any grudges were reported at that time. The kind of raising your ashes on the spot. And as for writing down your hatred, it's not just forgetting when you turn around. If he really remembers revenge, then I had to go over the old accounts. What a joke. Regarding the slanderous hatred against me, I kept a diary. Make sure to make him deeply aware of his mistakes and express deep remorse for his actions. Continuing to change himself into a comfortable position, Morgan asked Lot, you said that our regime is on the right track. Should we also do something else? Doing what? Lot was puzzled. What is there to do? What are we going to do? Is it to fish or to engage in nobles? The nobles are a bit too honest for the time being, and now if I go to them again, I will feel a little embarrassed. Leak or something. At least you have to wait until how old you are before you say no. As for fishing, let's not talk about how unsatisfactory it is for the king and the queen to go fishing in person. It's useless even if 2 of you go there. My fishing skills can only be said to be so-so. It's just extravagant hope. So what should we do? Make people. It is also unlikely. What are you thinking about? Sex. Morgan took a bite of Lot's arm. Damn, I can hear you clearly. Are there only those things in your little head? Then what shall we do? Of course it is to increase your strength. Lot, don't forget, as a king, in addition to superb national strength, your own strength is absolutely not bad. Morgan said to Lot seriously. In this era, this island country is still in a barren state. In addition to their superb ruling skills, people's requirements for the Lord cannot be weakened. Altria has such a poor governance level and can still be loved by the people. Isn't it just because she has been victorious in all battles when she ruled? This shows that the people of this era are quite intuitive. It would be nice to be able to see what's in front of you. Lot thought for a while. Many Western countries in later generations only thought about the high welfare in front of them, and didn't care about circular development at all. Sure enough, some thoughts are still in the same line. In this era, people already only want to see the benefits in front of them. But for now, this is not a big problem. This era, after all, is the era of heroes. The mystery is far from dissipated. Calculations alone are not enough. The planet will do everything possible to bring this Britain to an end. There are limits to human abilities. The more people work in tactics, the more they will fail because of unexpected things. So, if you want to change your own destiny, you must make the effort you deserve. It depends on the struggle of the self. So, how do we increase our strength? Could it be that Pendragon family will have any special items? Lot looked expectantly. Come on, any baby. Come up quickly. I'm so handsome, so it looks like the protagonist. When the time comes, what artifact I will get? Watch me smash that Vudagung to death with a single sword. Morgan was a little dumbfounded and said to Lot, what are you thinking? Our Pendragon family has nothing but our own blood. Besides, if there is one, my father will not. I lost in the battle with Vudagung. With this kind of good stuff, won't we use it first? Why are you waiting for it to you? Hearing Morgan say this, Lot also knew that he was a bit whimsical. Some things are ultimately up to you. Humans, it still depends on the struggle of oneself. Then you mean, I am going to practice knighthood? Lot asked Morgan. Just like Lancelot who came from France, many knights in this era will do some self-cultivation. They will accumulate various combat experiences, gain comrades, and defeat powerful enemies. If according to the description in the knight novel, there will be a few more epic loves. It's okay to arrive. I can go out to practice as a knight. Lot nodded and said before Morgan could answer. It just so happens that you can go to travel on public funds, and then stop by to catch a fish. Not bad. Lot thought in his heart. Well, you sucker. You have such thoughts in your heart. Morgan complained to Lot's thoughts in his heart. Want to fish? You have to ask me whether Morgan agreed or not. Morgan thought in his heart. Night practice? This thing doesn't suit you anymore. Morgan said to Lot with a smile. Then what shall we do? Of course it is going to the north to conquer those forces that are still flirting with food tagging. In the process of defeating the enemy, our power will continue to expand. Morgan touched his chin and said, the northern expedition? Lot thought for a while, and felt that the idea was good. The first is to increase their power, make Camelot stronger. The Camelot site is not big enough now, and if the site is not big enough, no matter how intensively farming, there is no way. England's bright moments are only possible in a colony with 30 million square kilometers of land. Several big countries in later generations also have huge territories. The country is large. Even if it's not a weak country, it's not much different. Even the motherland of Lot's previous life, even when it was the weakest and poorest a few decades ago, there were millions of troops, and the Beacon State did not dare to interfere in the civil war. And if you see if there is a civil war on the peninsula, the Lighthouse country will go to war without even hesitating. Now Camelot wants to increase his influence. Of course now Lot fully supports it. This is the first point, and the second point. After all, the food obtained by the development of the marine industry is still a few. We still have to eat food. Then defeat those countries. Wouldn't it be easy to rob a nobleman's granary? This can also add a lot of food. The number of people will also increase. This is the second point. The last point is Morgan himself. If Morgan becomes Lord of the island, his strength will not be the same as it is now. At that time, let alone trick that Bai Maoang into a violent beating. Even Votagung is not worth mentioning. In fact, since becoming the Lord of Camelot during this period of time, Lot has clearly felt the increase in Morgan's strength. She became stronger. Lot knows that if she is fighting life and death on the battlefield, she has a greater chance of winning herself. Your own strength is not good for enhancement. So for the time being, we should put the direction of training on Morgan's side. At that time, we will head north together to let those guys know how good we are. Morgan straightened up his small nose proudly, and said to Lot, although she was still pregnant with a child in her belly, but this is not a big problem for her. He didn't rush up to fight against others. The magician must have his own elegance. Now some magicians are not particular about them. When fighting with people, release a flash art, that is regarded as releasing magic. Then, they would carry their swords and rush towards the enemy. This is evil. The northern expedition has been well considered. Next, we have to do the preparatory work. Food and grass are quite sufficient. The grain to support the battle can still be squeezed out by a squeeze. If it doesn't work, just go hungry Altria for a few meals. She can save a lot of food if she is hungry. Morgan looked at the knights standing in the audience at the moment, thinking in his heart. Altria looked at Morgan on the throne, and couldn't help feeling a little scared. She secretly said in her heart, it really deserves to be the King's Majesty Morgan. She glanced at me and I naturally gave birth to fear. In order to prepare for the next step, Morgan called Kay, Altria and Galahad. Now these three knights are the most usable generals under his men. To set off, it is time to arrange the next things. Morgan said to the three of them, next, I will assign a task. Altria and others put their ears up, especially Altria. There is only one thing in her mind. It's time to do the task, then it's time to eat well. First of all, Kay, after we leave, you will be responsible for the specific Camelot affairs. Morgan still remembers Lot saying that Kay is the best person in charge of internal affairs. Therefore, it is more appropriate to leave the task of staying behind to Kay. Yes. Kay nodded. Then Morgan looked at the two remaining people. Altria, Galahad, you two will follow me and lead the Knights of the Round Table to guard me and Lot. Yes. Galahad nodded slightly, but looking at Morgan and Lot, he was a little worried. Your Majesty Morgan, please tell me, where is Lancelot? I'm going to find him. Morgan pretended not to see it. Where do I go to transform Galahad into Lancelot? I didn't see anything. Next, Morgan looked at Altria. Hey, the saliva from the corner of your mouth is almost running out. She complained in her heart. My stupid sister, please pay attention to me. HMPH, forget it. Let's prepare a big meal for you in the evening. Morgan was a little helpless. Who are my family members anyway? The husband who likes to be lazy. The sister who eats more than anyone else. I'm so hard tilde. After a few more explanations, Morgan told them to leave first. And Galahad looked at Morgan, ready to wait to find her to ask about Lancelot. When several people were saying this, Lancelot also approached Merlin. Are you really Camelot's national teacher? And Merlin, who made a lot of predictions for King Arthur? He looked at Merlin and asked in a puzzled tone. After Lancelot heard Merlin say that, of course he wouldn't believe it so easily. He deliberately went to others to inquire about Merlin. Then, he actually got such a news. Although Merlin often visits prostitution houses and does white prostitution, she is quite guaranteed in terms of credibility. What he said is really wrong. So can he really help himself? Doubtful. He came to Merlin to find out. Well, it should be. Merlin smiled brilliantly. Then how are you going to make me famous? Lancelot continued to ask. Of course it's very simple. Merlin smiled, and then he was going to introduce his disciple to Lancelot. Because when Lancelot was playing against Galahad, Lot was by the side. When the nobles behind made trouble, Lancelot didn't make a move. So Merlin had no idea that he had met with Altria. At this moment, Altria came over from a distance. Merlin was also a little depressed when he saw Altria appear. Now Lot's influence is getting bigger and bigger. He now lives in the Chalk City, and the entire city is beyond his sight. Merlin felt that the entire Chalk City was now covered in a thick mist. Now that his own disciples come over, they can only see with the naked eye. Come on, I'll introduce to you. Merlin started to speak to Lancelot. Then, he saw Altria rushing over with excitement. Teacher, I was worried that you would not support His Majesty Morgan's administration. Unexpectedly, you saw the running away anti-thief and arrested him. Okay, teacher, wait, I will capture him. A surprised expression appeared on Merlin's face. At this moment in Camelot's palace, Galahad asked Morgan, Your Majesty Morgan, I want to know, where is that person? Lot looked puzzled, and Morgan was embarrassed. Don't worry, it will happen when the time comes. Morgan said, Ha ha. Your Majesty, are you trying to confuse me? Seeing Morgan's expression like this, Galahad had a suspicious expression on his face. He is just innocent, not stupid. How is this possible? Morgan denied it at this time. That Galahad wanted to ask again. At this moment, the three of them heard a loud noise. Galahad quickly looked over. Then, he turned his head and said to Morgan with a look of shame, I'm sorry, Your Majesty Morgan, I shouldn't doubt you. Lot looked at his expression and couldn't help looking at Morgan. What's the situation? You don't need to read your mind, just look at the expression. Morgan, on the other hand, held his head high. Hey, luscious dog, I have a clever plan. Chapter 75 Red Hair, so sad, 5k. Merlin, you count me. Seeing Altria's movements, Lancelot had only this idea in his mind. He changed his face and shouted to Merlin, You call me over here. Then you arrange for this little knight to come and attack me, right? You old liar. Merlin said he was really innocent. When did your own disciple meet this Lancelot? Also, there is still enmity between you. Just as he thought about it, Altria had already handed over to Lancelot. The long swords of both sides collided. Neither Altria nor Lancelot hesitated at all. They both swung their swords and smashed at each other. Both felt the strength of each other. Very strong. Altria thought in her heart. Her hands were slightly numb. If Morgan became the king, who weakened the most, it would undoubtedly be Altria. In another time and space, she was already the king, burdened by the expectations of the British at this moment. And now, the dry rice is so fragrant. So although her fighting will is not reduced at all, her strength is a bit worse than the original history. Under the long swords of both sides, she clearly felt the pain in her arm. And Lancelot on the other side, although he had the upper hand, he was also very surprised. This Briton is really crouching tiger, hidden dragon. The knight last time is fine, today this one is small, like a girl knight, and so strong. And she was still a teenager, and it was obvious that her strength would increase in the future. When she really grows up, how strong it will be. All of Britain, except for the lot I saw. No matter how I see someone, everyone can fight. Lancelot thought in his heart. He can defeat Altria, but it takes time. The fighting between the two sides was very loud. It's like thunder in a sunny day. And this voice not only caused the people around to escape, but also was heard by Galahad, who was in the court at this moment with Morgan to inquire about Lancelot's whereabouts. He took a look. This Lancelot was actually in this place. So, after he apologized to Morgan, he also left the palace, and then went to the scene of the battle between Altria and Lancelot, and came and rushed to support Altria. Of course, the more important thing is to beat Lancelot with confidence. Okay, it's enjoyable. Soon, he also joined the battle group, but not long afterwards, Nakai also heard the news. In order to help his righteous brother, he swung his sword and joined the battlefield. What a 3 British war against the Yangtze River. This little plus is so cruel, I don't even keep my hands. K, where are you going to fight? Can you fight in that place? If you fight ... Oh, I forgot, you are Altria's brother, then fight. Altria, use your invincible curry stick to beat Lancelot to the ground. Seeing Lot took out a strange cylindrical object from his arms, and evaluated it back and forth on the battlefield below, Morgan no longer wanted to know how to complain. Laughter, it's really boring. But having said that, that was really a coincidence today. If that Lancelot doesn't show up, I really won't be able to end it. Morgan thought in his heart. She looked at Lot like this, couldn't help but cast a blank look, then continued to pick up the file and start processing. As for the outcome of the battle, she doesn't worry much. 3-1, if this is counter-killed, then stop playing. Now I still have to deal with more government affairs. The northern expedition is about to come. The army's food and grass should be reconfirmed. Also, doesn't Lot think that he can't deal with the affairs of those nobles? First think of a way to completely wipe out those nobles. At that time, he will surely give him a surprise. Morgan thought slightly triumphantly in his heart. On the other side, in Lot's sight, he saw the end of the battle. Lancelot faced the siege of 3 people at the same time, seeming to be clumsy. Then he thought he shouldn't stay here. You should run away quickly. He thought so in his mind. Then he glanced at Merlin, who was standing next to him. Well, Let's make a breakthrough from his side first. He is a magician, and his melee combat power should not be strong. Besides, I would fall into such a situation, mainly because of Merlin. Why should I take revenge? Lancelot is not a petty person. However, what Merlin did really made him angry. Watching Lancelot rushing towards him swinging his sword, Merlin opened his eyes wide and showed a confused expression. You say, what is this? I haven't done anything here, so you come over and chop me? But seeing Lancelot's actions, he didn't dare to underestimate him. He took out the long sword from his sleeve, and he took out the very calm sword, and fought Lancelot. The two sides quickly handed in a few swords. Lancelot still couldn't break through Merlin's sword flower. At this time, Galahad and others also rushed over, blocked Lancelot. Before Lancelot was blocked, he asked Merlin in surprise, aren't you a magician? How come the swordsmanship is so good? Behind him, Altria said helplessly, although Teacher Merlin is a magician. However, he is also my swordsmanship teacher. Lancelot didn't know what to say, and Merlin tilted his head and smiled at him. Hey, in Lancelot's eyes, it was so disgusting. This dead liar. The favorability of Merlin's members of the Knights of the Round Table became negative again. I want to know, why do you hate me so much? Lancelot looked at Galahad who was standing next to him at the moment. His eyes kept looking at him, and said in a suspicious tone, this is not the first time I have said this. He really couldn't think of when Galahad met him. Some people, although they haven't met yet, will feel hatred. For example, when I see you, I will naturally feel this way. When Galahad faced Lancelot, he would naturally start to become venomous. Moreover, he couldn't tell a lot about his life experience. The current Lancelot probably didn't even see his mother's face. Where do you know I will show up? Therefore, he directly expressed that he simply disliked him. Beside, Kay glanced at this little plus strangely. Isn't this person very honest in normal times? Honestly, why does the child change as soon as he sees this person? Don't understand. Kay was a little dazed. Lancelot looked at Galahad. As a knight, lies are not necessary. I can clearly see that your hatred of me is not unfounded. On the contrary, you have a good reason. So please tell me, what is the reason? It is hated by others, and you always have to know the reason. Lancelot is not stupid. On the contrary, his instincts are still very keen. Of course he could hear the insincerity in Galahad's words. He believed that this guy must have his own reasons. Galahad thought for a while, but the decision was still hard to tell. There are some things that I won't talk about. When the time comes, you will naturally understand. He could only say this to Lancelot. Lancelot was very depressed when he heard what he said. The time has come. Did you know that you are very appetizing to say that? You are a child who is educated by someone, and that's how it is. When several people were saying this, Morgan and Lot walked out. Saw Lancelot and Galahad like this. Why didn't Morgan understand what this was because of? Because there is go in his stomach. Morgan has a lot of motherhood in his heart. Seeing Xiaojia like this, she felt a little sympathetic. Is this kid still reluctant to tell his father about his life experience? She thought this in her heart, and then looked at Lancelot. Knight Lancelot, now your identity is our captive. Asking my knights here is a bit too presumptuous. I haven't asked your identity yet? She spoke to Lancelot, interrupted his questioning of Galahad. Galahad breathed a sigh of relief and looked at Morgan at the same time, with a grateful expression on his face. His Majesty Morgan knows who I am, so, in order to prevent my future things from leaking out, he interrupted Lancelot. At the side, Lot showed the same expression as Morgan. It was naturally ignored by Galahad. Why would he know? Of course His Majesty Morgan told it. What else is there? Oh, no, 4 people beat me and 1. Is your victory worth boasting? Lancelot said halfway, thinking of the old liar Merlin who didn't know where it was at this moment, and then immediately changed his words. Said 4. He said this. Kai and Altria's faces were reddened. After all, this thing is really not so glorious. And Galahad, does my son still need to talk about martial arts when he beats his father? As for Morgan and Lot, they even made it by putting black guns on the battlefield. Still care about this? Those who don't talk about martial arts will be put aside. I want to know who you are. I don't know anything except for knowing that your name is Lancelot. My name is Lancelot, and I am a knight from France. Lancelot said briefly. At the same time, he looked at Morgan, wondering what she would ask next. Is it your specific identity? At this time, he didn't expect Morgan to ask a somewhat unexpected question. How old are you? 20. Lancelot answered subconsciously. Hearing what he said, Morgan's expression became very weird. 20 years old? You are really 20 years old. So how big is the small plus next to it? Even if it's the most, it's just 7 or 8 years old, right? Look at this look. In the whole of Britain, the strength is first class. This trademark is 8 years old? Morgan fell into a life of deep suspicion. Looking at Morgan's expression, Lancelot thought he was going to be cruel, and said, what's the matter? If you want to punish me, come on, just come on. The tone is awe-inspiring. The outstanding one is not afraid of life and death. And Morgan and Lot, the two people showed question marks. Why are we killing you? Now I ask you again, Are you willing to work for us? Morgan asked Lancelot. Although the character of this person is indeed not very good, at least his strength is guaranteed. Moreover, even if his strength is not guaranteed, as long as he is here, it is guaranteed that Galahad can do his best. Are you forcing others to join you like this? Lancelot frowned, then refused. His Royal Highness Morgan, I won't agree. You don't agree, do you? Morgan frowned and asked Lancelot. Yes. Lancelot looked righteous. Well, good. Morgan pondered. Come on, tie him up for me, hungry him for a few days, I see if he agrees or not. What? Lancelot was dumbfounded. No. I am a knight. I am a noble. You can't use this method. Lancelot looked at the others with a plea for help. Lot, Kay and Galahad had no opinion. Altria felt that it was too cruel to do so. She wanted to plead with Morgan. Then Morgan gave her a warning look. If you dare to intercede with me, then I won't be hungry for him. I will be hungry for you. Among the two choices of hungry Lancelot and hungry yourself, Altria only thought for a few seconds before coming to a conclusion. Cavaliers are very patient beings. So, Knight Lancelot, I believe you. Altria was also silent. Then, in the midst of Nalanslit's protesting eyes, he was dragged down. Hungry him for a few days before talking. And the only relative of Lancelot present, Galahad, not only showed no sympathy on his face, on the contrary, he was very happy. In fact, before Lancelot's death crisis, all the misfortunes he encountered, Galahad was supportive. Hungry for a few days, really nothing big. Seeing him being pulled away from the back, Altria couldn't bear it. But because of Morgan's eyes, she didn't dare to persuade her. So she changed the subject. By the way, Your Majesty Morgan, this time we succeeded in capturing the Knight Lancelot. My teacher Merlin has done a lot in it. Shall we reward him? Yes, we must thank him. Lot said with a smile. I always feel that the white-haired net scam was cheated by my own students, he thought in his heart. At the same time, he glanced at Morgan next to him. Seeing her also showed the same expression. Okay, yes, the husband and wife just want to go together. Settle things up here with Lancelot. The matter of the northern expedition also began to be put on the agenda. Morgan and Lot began to plan the next offensive. First of all, the most important thing is to expand the scope of the basic disc. In the north of Camelot, where is the most important base? It is the scope of Orkney under Lot's jurisdiction. There is a hub for sea and land. Jink attacked Scotland, and if it retreats, it can also radiate to many parts of England. In addition, Lot was there and built an iron bucket long ago, and Orkney's safety was the top priority of this northern expedition. Start from the periphery of Orkney, and then clear out the forces that oppose Camelot. Taking advantage of the fact that Vortigern's strength has not recovered for the time being, as far as possible to force Vortigern's power on the Welsh side, Lot and Morgan are also convenient for the next step. After consultation and decision, the soldiers' preparations are also on the agenda. Lot prepared a knight of 300 men and an army of 6,000 men. The number of people is not too much. However, the high-level combat power is very good. Whether it's Galahad or Altria, they are all first class. Oh, and that old liar, Merlin. Lot knew very well that if he wasn't there, Merlin would surely poke in his back. So, in order to avoid him wanting to mess up, just bring him on. The tough band is the kind that opposes invalidity. Merlin tried to protest several times, but Morgan and Lot resolutely refused. So he could only set off with the mighty crowd. The army pulled out and began to march northward. All opposing forces will be swept away. Merlin leaned his head up and rode on the horse, and beside him was a knight. Lancelot, I said, I am innocent. Do you believe it? Merlin blinked his eyes and said to Lancelot. Lancelot said nothing, but stared at Merlin fiercely. Bringing Merlin into the army, of course he can't be a dry meal. So Morgan gave him the task of guarding Lancelot. As for worrying about whether he will run, if others, Morgan must be worried. But Merlin will not, because even if Lancelot managed to escape, he would definitely doubt that it was Merlin's strategy. Have to guard against. If you were upright, you might have run away long ago. But when I met Lancelot, I was so mindful. That worked very well. In this way, Camelot's army moved forward within a few days. They ran into an army. Of course, it's not a war, because Lot and Morgan discovered that this army was not only insufficient in number and equipment, but more of their hands were still holding gifts. It didn't look like he was about to go to war with Camelot. When the army saw Camelot's army, they were stunned. But at this moment, the army separated, and a leading man came over. This man has red hair and looks handsome. His eyes seemed to be closed. In his hand, he also held a harp. The most unforgettable thing was the sorrow that could not dissipate in his expression. Chapter 76. Altria's father-in-law. 4K. This man is gorgeously dressed and handsome, although there is always a sad atmosphere. But it seems to be very leisurely. Morgan saw this man and felt that this aura should be unusual. Should be a master. The strength may have to be higher than the color dog. Thinking of this, Morgan glanced at Lot and cursed inwardly. Tomorrow will not be worse than others, but it is much worse than others in diligence. Other knights get up early in the morning to train swordsmanship or knights. How about switching to Lot's side? I went to practice riding in the morning. It's just that it's not a horse to ride. At this time, the red-haired man came to the front of Lot and Morgan's army, and slightly lowered his head and said to Lot, Hello, I am Tristan under the command of King Marco. May I ask you who are you? Frowning for a moment, he looked at Morgan and Lot and said, Are you Majesty Morgan and Lot of Camelot? In Tristan's eyes, the troops led by these two men are well equipped, their morale is also extremely high, and their numbers are not in the minority. In the whole of England, there are only two that can have this kind of military strength. One is Vudagung, who is in Wales now, but his strength is definitely not to be underestimated. The other one is Camelot, and the superb looks of Lot and Morgan made Tristan even more clear that they were Camelot's army. As for Vudagung, although he looks very good, but as we all know, he is a single dog. There will be no women in the army he leads. Yes, Morgan was a little surprised, but nodded anyway. Meet your Majesty Lot, your Majesty Morgan. Tristan answered very politely. What are you doing here? Are you going to give gifts? Morgan looked at Tristan like this and couldn't help asking. Well, yes. Tristan nodded. I am coming to Ireland for my uncle to marry Princess Isod. Oh, Morgan thought about what Tristan said about King Marco in his mind. Marco is the king of Cornwall. This is a country in southwestern Britain. But the relationship with Ireland is pretty good. If you go to Ireland in the future, you can consider this. From there, it was a springboard to take Ireland under his command. At that time, all 3 islands in Britain will belong to itself. At that time, his strength will become even stronger. Moreover, from a geographical point of view, it is much less difficult to get out of the ship from Cornwall and then attack Vudagung. Since following Lot, Morgan has a soft spot for starting from behind. Okay, do you want to get along with King Marco? Morgan thought about it. At this time, Lot was also looking at Tristan. Unexpectedly, I met Tristan here. Did Lot recognize Tristan? Morgan turned his attention to Lot's side. She pricked up her ears, wanting to listen carefully to what Lot thinks. Also, what about the strength of this guy? Can it be collected into the Knights of the Round Table? Morgan's ideals are great. It takes a lot of people to come under her and Lot's. Damn, Tristan is going to help his uncle to propose marriage? I went. It turned out to be this thing. Okay, what's the matter? Morgan became more curious. Oh, what a pity that Isod fell in love with him, but became his uncle's wife. In the end, the love between two people ended in tragedy. Lot thought again in his heart. Tristan has been a tragedy since he was born. When his mother gave birth to him, it was difficult to give birth, so he named him Tristan, which means son of sorrow. His father died before he saw him, and his mother also passed away not long after giving birth to him. Then he was raised by King Marco. King Marco treated him like a parent and child. This is doomed to his tragedy in the future. On the one hand, it is the one he loves, on the other hand, it is King Marco. Eventually led to his tragic ending. What? Morgan was shocked by what Lot was thinking about Tristan. Guys, how messy are you guys? Why are the feelings of the young knights of my generation more chaotic than each? Here is a love triangle, and there is a love triangle on my sister's side. No, it's not just a love triangle. Morgan thought of Galahad's biological mother again. How many horns are these? Morgan complained in his heart. Lancelot and Drit, you two don't care about the specific reasons. But why do you have such a soft spot for indecent love? If you are not so tragic, who is the tragedy? Then, she glanced at Lot. Okay, it's better to be my dog. Only look at myself. Others don't even watch it. Compared with other women of this era, I'm really lucky, although it is a political marriage. But I like it. Sure enough, I was indeed destined to be the hostess of Britain. No matter how you look at it, my luck is unparalleled. So she looked at Tristan with a slight pity in her eyes, and said to him, well, then I wish you a smooth journey. You may encounter a lot of difficulties along the way. After saying that, she looked at Lot with loving eyes. Forbidden feelings, but there are more terrifying existences than giant dragons. Let's go, we have to go on going. Thus, Morgan and others continued to set off. Tristan gave way, but he looked at Morgan's back and fell into deep doubts. I always feel that there are other words in her words. The sympathy in her tone doesn't seem to be just for my birth. Could it be that I have other problems on this road? Tristan thought of something wrong instinctively, but he didn't know exactly what difficulties he would encounter. Now he, in order to fulfill his uncle's wish, continues his journey to Ireland. It's just that he kept in mind what Morgan said. When he came to Ireland and met Isolde, he knew the deep meaning in Morgan's words. After bidding farewell to Tristan, Lot felt the atmosphere suddenly relaxed a lot. The army found a place to be stationed. Lot and Morgan began to sit in the tent waiting for food. And Lot was lying on the chair like Mastage, and the whole person was in a very relaxed position. It can only be said that Sadness is worthy of Sadness. When he was there, the whole atmosphere became melancholy. Alas, I don't know how other people in the Knights of the Round Table will feel his atmosphere. Wait, what are you talking about? Morgan heard Lot's voice. The eyes couldn't help being widened. You mean, this choice is sad? Oh no, it's Tristan. Is that an existence that can enter the Knights of the Round Table? Does he have such a superb martial arts? I'll go. If I knew he had such a high level of martial arts, I would not let him go so easily. Lost. Thinking that the coloring dog could skip an important message so easily, Morgan was also a little angry, and then, taking advantage of Lot's unpreparedness, quietly patted his thigh. Well, it succeeded. Satisfied. After the filming, Morgan thought in his heart. And Lot. He watched Morgan's movements, and all that was left was dumbfounding. What is this? Looking at me over the just now, I was still full of affection, but when I was here, it became annoyed again. Want to pat my thigh to relieve my breath. I haven't hired her. I haven't provoked her yet. Why did she do it like this? Can't figure it out. Can't figure it out. Is this the normal physiological reaction of a woman during pregnancy? Are you the physiological reaction? Morgan was a little annoyed and wanted to give Lot another bite. But when she was about to move, Lot continued to think, that looks like Morgan is really working hard. Take good care of her emotions in the future. It is said that if pregnant women are not taken care of during pregnancy, they can easily become depressed. Morgan was moved. I won't be depressed. Laughter. Who is depressed with you? Even if I am a little depressed, as long as I look at you, I will be happy. Well, it's pretty good. Morgan stretched, then lay in Lot's arms. Looky. I'm tired. Sleep in your arms for a while. Go to sleep, in my arms. You can sleep peacefully anytime. Okay. Morgan kissed Lot on the cheek, then closed his eyes. She fell asleep soon. The appearance of falling asleep is very childish. I'm drooling. Lot looked at her like this and stretched out his finger to gently touch her lips. Tease. Interesting. Ouch. Lot looked at Morgan, who bit his finger off, a little bit eager to cry. And Morgan, who was biting Lot's finger, couldn't help but smile upwards. You scumbag, you dare to molest your old lady? If the old lady let you know, I wouldn't be annoyed. Morgan thought in his heart while grinding his teeth with Lot's fingers. The army continued to set off. After a while, they returned to Lot's Orkney County. During this process, they also encountered forces that still colluded with Vudajan, and one by one paid in the past. In this process, it is not others who have made the greatest contribution. It's Merlin. With his presence, almost no one can hide the past. And Merlin was facing the power of Vudajan, so of course he wouldn't have kept his hands in the slightest. Even if Morgan targets him again, he knows what the number one enemy is. During this process, Merlin also repeatedly felt how profound Lot's face-changing technique was. Before meeting a new power, he was respectfully called Mr. Merlin by Morgan and Lot. Then after he identified the other party's ingredients, he became an old liar. But before coming to the next force, he continued to change his name to Mr. Merlin. So it goes back and forth. Merlin felt that he had the same emotions as others. Only, who cares about Merlin's mood? Even his disciple, Altria, was bought by his sister Morgan with all the delicious food. Eat and eat, teacher or something. What is that? Tasty. Dry rice comes first. Back in Orkney County, Morgan naturally raised the corners of his mouth. She felt very happy, although only lived here for a few months. But she felt a sense of belonging. The smell of the sea breeze was a lot more fishy than the Chalk City. Buildings such as castles are also much worse than the Chalk City. But this is the kingdom built by Lot himself. It is more in line with Lot's idea than Britain. Sitting on the carriage, Morgan lightly leaned against Lot's shoulder. Different from riding a horse with Lot when they set off, the two of them were sitting on the carriage at the moment. Morgan's stomach slightly rose. The child has begun to grow up. Morgan originally wanted to insist on riding a horse, but Lot forcefully hugged him into the carriage. Of course, the thought that was held in this way, Morgan knew about it before Lot even started to act. But who would refuse his husband to show his love for himself like this? Does Morgan lack the Queen's arrogance in some respects? Morgan can be considered arrogant in some respects. It's just that honor is aimed at others. And when he got to Lot's side, he would become an obedient little wife. Morgan and Lot returned to the castle. Sleep, eat something first, and then take a good night's sleep. Tossing around on this road, did not sleep peacefully. After returning, Lot thought in his heart, this luscious dog, as soon as he gets home, he wants to sleep. Morgan thought angry and funny. Then, come, take me to the bedroom. She stretched out her hand to put her arm around Lot's neck, and then jumped into Lot's arms skillfully. Hey, be careful of the child. Lot said nervously. It's okay. He will be considerate of his mother, Morgan said indifferently. Lot mourned for Gom for a second. Then, I was ready to go to the bedroom. It's just that he has just taken a step. The door of the castle opened suddenly. Your Majesty Lot, Your Majesty Morgan, King Xiaojia sent an envoy to come to meet, Altria said as she walked in. Then, she saw Lot, the princess holding Morgan. She blinked. I seem to have made a mistake again. Seeing her walk in, Morgan and Lot gave Altria a fierce look at the same time. It's over. I might go to the sea to catch fish to eat next, Altria thought in her heart. In fact, Morgan's and Lot's thoughts are indeed similar. But after thinking this way, Lot turned his attention to Altria's words again. The messenger sent by King Xiaojia. Isn't this Altria's father-in-law? Chapter 77, Morgan will do what Morgan should do. First more. This messenger was sent by my sister's father-in-law. Listening to what Lot was thinking, Morgan was a little surprised. I was still thinking about where Guinevere was. As a result, his father has found him now. Morgan looked at Altria, who was looking nervous at the moment, thinking that some things were really about fate. When King Xiaojia came to look for it, he naturally found Altria. King Xiaojia. This name is not only awkward to read, but also few people know it. But when it comes to his daughter, Guinevere, She is very famous. After all, as the wife of King Arthur, and ultimately led to the death of King Arthur. The origin of the disappearance of the Knights of the Round Table, her name can be said to be very well known. Now his messenger is coming, what is it going to do? Lot thought in his heart. Come, show me the letter, he said to Altria. Okay. Altria handed over the letter in her hand. Lot took the letter, and Morgan tilted his head curiously next to him, and read the letter with Lot's arm while leaning on his side. And the content above, not much. The main thing is to ask for help. His turf is now being robbed by King Ryan. Some can't beat it now. For the sake of being respectful to you Camelot in normal times, hurry up to cheer up the brothers. As long as you can help me, then I will repay you. Sincerely, King Laodicean. Good fellow, how can I repay this in return? In the original history, you also married your daughter to Altria, and by the way gave her a large round table that can accommodate 150 people. Now what? We can't come out for a long time, so we will go home with a big table in the end. That is no longer a question of not losing, but to the point of being a trouser. As soon as the cannon is fired, gold is 10,000 pils. War is only done if it is profitable. Even if we help, we have to make a profit. Being the boss, you can't be too xunzong. As long as you are willing to be my little brother, this big brother will be taken care of. Morgan nodded in approval. It's just that I am a little puzzled. What is this cannon? And who is Hunjung? Not sure. And at this moment, Lot continued to think, wait, I have to blackmail the messenger. Although this is a good opportunity to expand into Scotland, I don't want people to be dragged down. Hey, this kind of direct blackmail, isn't it a bit too knightly etiquette? Morgan complained in his heart. Then, she opened her mouth and said to Altria, come on, you let the messenger come over. Okay. Altria nodded, then turned around and called the messenger over. Seeing the messenger, Morgan spoke directly. King Laodicean sent a letter for help. Is this only the letter? Didn't I explain anything to you? The messenger was at a loss. Is there anything else in this letter for help? Look, we and the King Ryan have never had any enmity before. We are required to deal with them. What? The messenger looked at Morgan. And Morgan, his tone intensified. You have to add money. What? The messenger felt even more confused. For example, how much land, money, or other things your king is willing to give us as rewards. But, in the spirit of a knight, the messenger said cowardly. Altria also wanted to help. Isn't that what a knight should do to help young children? Morgan glared at Altria first, and then said to the messenger in a rogue tone, yes, the spirit of a knight is indeed like this. But I am not a knight. Of course I won't talk about this. After saying this, she glanced at Lot. Laughter. I know what you want to say, but there are some things you shouldn't say. You are a knight, and you will be a moral benchmark for all of Britain in the future. These swear words should still be me. Looking at Morgan's eyes, Lot couldn't help but smile. This silly daughter-in-law, can you still guess that I want to blackmail the other party? Is it because I'm too obvious? Laughter. Who are you, stupid? This grudge, Morgan will write you down again. She thought in her heart. The messenger looked at Lot just smiling at Morgan, but didn't refute it, so he had to go and discuss with their king depressed, and then retreated. Watch him withdraw. Lot and Morgan smiled at each other. Then, they all said to Altria, okay, inform the army. We start to prepare for war. This time, it was Altria's turn to be at a loss. Didn't you just say that you'd disagree? She found herself at odds with these two men. Depressed to death. Just as depressed to death, there is also Lancelot. He was the same as Merlin, and was forcibly taken into the army. Lancelot once came with Lot to inquire about why he wanted to advance with the army, and Lot only thought for a while, and then replied to Lancelot that he was used to sacrifice the flag. Sacrifice the flag? What is this custom? Are you Britons so scary? Lancelot suddenly felt that his position in the army was better than being used as emergency food. This is not important yet. More importantly, Nagrad is in charge of taking care of him at this moment. How did Galahad take care of him? Lancelot felt, it is a lucky thing to be alive. Just as he was thinking about it, Galahad appeared, took a portion of food, and handed it to him. This is your lunch. Lunch? Lancelot glanced at the sky where the moon appeared at the moment. It's really early for this lunch to be delivered, he thought in his heart. He still speculated in his heart. If he hadn't come, but someone else had come to surrender him, perhaps he would have surrendered a long time ago. Picking up the food, Lancelot put it in his mouth. Well, it's delicious. I have to say that although Lancelot thinks Lot and Morgan have a bad attitude towards him, but the food is still very good, much better than the food in France. At the beginning, anyone was saying that the food in Britain is very poor, and it is incomparable with France. But now it seems that the food in Britain is much better. I said, if you want to kill me, just give me a knife. Don't be here, torture me, Lancelot said to Galahad while eating the food. I won't do it to you, Galahad said seriously to Lancelot. Then you want to kill or not to let go? What are you going to do? This. Galahad is still organizing words. At this time, Altria came over and told him to prepare for the war to help King Laodicean. After listening to Altria said so, Galahad turned to look at Lancelot. Hey, what are you going to do? Why did you tie the rope tightly to me? Chapter 78. Don't miss anything if you have children. Second more. Lancelot was firmly. He subconsciously thought that he was going to be brought over to sacrifice the flag. Can't help but struggle. Are you Britons so barbaric? Take living people to worship. Are you still a place where you believe in God? Come here, you give me a sword, let me die in a duel with you. But I would never agree to being sacrificed. Xiaojia, why did you tie him so tightly? Seeing Galahad's movements, Altria asked suspiciously. Because Lot and Morgan often called Galahad as Xiaojia. Kai, Altria and others also learned to call Xiaojia Xiaojia's, and Galahad himself did not raise any objections. Hearing Altria's inquiry, Galahad smiled shyly, and then replied, "Oh, isn't this about to start fighting? Isn't this to prevent him from escaping?" Oh, Altria nodded clearly. She didn't even feel that there was anything wrong with it. If her righteous brother Kai did this, she would definitely suspect that Kai was playing a prank. But Galahad is doing this now. In normal times, his words and deeds are seen in the eyes. That is a child who is more innocent and kinder than anyone else. Now he Lancelot, then Galahad is definitely not the problem. This shows how important it is to establish a personal setting. He is not honest, so I came to tie him tight. Galahad continued to speak to Altria. Before he crossed over, he heard that there were various personal relationships between Queen Guinevere and the knight Lancelot in the Chalk City. Therefore, I will never let you go to see that Guinevere. Thinking of this, Galahad tightened the rope again. Although tied tightly, Lancelot breathed a sigh of relief. Fortunately, it is just to prevent oneself from running around, not to sacrifice oneself. Hey? Etc. I won't run around. Lancelot protested loudly at Galahad. Only, he was ignored, and he continued to tighten the rope tightly. Seeing Galahad's resolute expression, Lancelot shut up. Because he knew it, he protested again. It is estimated that this Galahad can build a huge steel cage and cover himself with the cage. Next time, Luke, you have to say something that is not in the spirit of chivalry. Don't say it, and leave it to me. In the castle, Morgan also spoke to Lot and told him, I don't care about my image. Even if someone in this world says I am a fairy, I don't care. But, Lucius, you have to keep your image well for me. That, I don't care. Since you don't care about your own reputation, then why should I care? Lot scratched his head and answered Morgan. You don't care about your own reputation. But I do. Morgan patted Lot's arm, then said seriously, I can bear my being slandered, but I will never allow anyone to slander you. Lot felt a warm feeling in his heart when Morgan said this. How cute Morgan is. Me, agree to it now. But I can't give her all the dirty work in the future. Morgan looked up at Lot. Humphrey, Lucius dog, do you think you can do it secretly with me behind your back? I won't let you do this. Morgan shouted in his heart. Then, she turned the subject and smiled and asked Lot, in other words, what do you think this King Lydicuan will give us? Is it money or something else? Then who knows? Anyway, let's not rush to make a price and see what he will give in a hurry. The more anxious, the more he can give. If we let him follow us and march to Scotland in the future, then it will become a lot easier. Lot showed a little devilish smile and said to Morgan. Yeah. Morgan nodded slightly. Then, she seemed to be thinking of something, and raised her head and said to Lot, wait, I remember that King Lydicuan has a beautiful daughter. You can't move your mind. I'll move a hammer. Lot stretched out his hand and knocked Morgan's head. This silly Morgan, I have you enough. Don't say I haven't seen Guinevere. Even if I have seen it, I can't be tempted by her. Now I am more looking forward to the 150 knights who will marry with her than the appearance of the legendary Guinevere. These knights, but a good combat power. If they belong to us, it would be very good. Hey. Hearing Lot's heartbeat, Morgan was still very happy even though she was hit the head. Who knows your mind? Morgan hummed, and then she caught Lot. I decided to ensure your virginity. I decided to squeeze you out first. But, don't you have a child in your stomach? Lot pointed to Morgan's stomach and said, you told me before, sometimes, you can use other places. Morgan said this, his face a little unnatural. However, the movement in his hand did not hesitate at all, dragging Lot into the castle. Scotland. King Lydicuan is still waiting anxiously at this moment. His hair has turned grey and it can be said to be very old. People in this era, even aristocrats, do not live long, especially in the perennial campaign. There are many hidden injuries in the body. He is very old, and his appearance on the battlefield is not satisfactory. In the face of the enemy's attack, he couldn't support it. In Scotland, if the war is defeated, it can be said that there will be no bones left. When he was worried about the outcome of the defeat, someone told him that the two co-rulers of Camelot and Orkney, Lot and Morgan, had come to Orkney. He is also very clear about the name of the humble King Vuticking. Lot who can defeat him can also defeat the enemy who is fighting against him. Orkney was not far from the place where King Lydicuan was, and he wanted to come to Lot for help. Well, I hope they can agree. He talked to himself a little nervously. At this time, a beautiful girl came over. Seeing him like this, he tilted his head and asked, Father, what are you worried about? She is the daughter of King Lydicuan. Guinevere. The 79th chapter teaches sister, it is necessary, first more. Guinevere is of course very beautiful. Otherwise, He would not marry King Arthur and let Lancelot come to be infatuated. She is still a young girl with bright eyes and white teeth. Oh, nothing happened. King Lydicuan changed his expression and said with a smile, "This old king is really incompetent. But he is a little better. This is a standard daughter control. Treating her daughter is really good and has no bottom line." You see, in the original history, King Arthur married her not only a dinner table, but also 150 knights. That would be considered an extremely important force on King Arthur's side. For King Lydicuan, it was even more traumatic. "I don't believe it," Gurneyvale said to her father. "Father, is the war not going well?" At this point, "Don't worry, how can I protect my daughter well?" In order to reassure Gurneyvale, King Lydicuan continued, "Moreover, I also sent a letter asking for help to Morgan and Lot of Camelot. I believe they will choose to help us, and wait until they come, and our day to fight back will come." Lot and Morgan. Gurneyvale frowned slightly at the mention of these two people. "What's wrong?" Seeing his daughter's expression, King Lydicuan asked quickly. "I always feel that what they have done is really a bit ugly." Gurneyvale frowned and replied, "Assaulting others behind his back, it is a bit too disobeying the rules of the knight. I still like to use the knight. The means of victory are coming to victory." "Well, it is true. King Lydicuan should be with his daughter. My daughter is good at everything, just a kind of unrealistic fantasy. I once asked her what kind of husband I would like to find in the future. He even said to himself, looking for a hero-like knight. Is there such a person in Britain now?" While he was thinking about it, the messenger who had asked Lot and Morgan for help before returned. "What's wrong?" "Did Lot agree to send troops?" As soon as he saw the messenger coming back, King Lydicuan hurriedly asked him this. The messenger looked embarrassed, and then told King Lydicuan about Morgan's request. "Got more money?" His expression also became weird. "Are you so careless?" "But, okay, I'll give it." King Lydicuan gritted his teeth and said, "Whether he wants land, food, or treasure, I can give it to him, as long as he is willing to agree to help me." At the side, Gurneyvert curled his lips, as a girl full of longing for the night. These are really unaccustomed. But nothing was said. After all, she is not stupid, knowing that she really needs Lot's help now. However, in her heart, she was still looking forward to a night in her own mind. "I look forward to that one morning, after my castle is surrounded by enemies, a handsome knight will break through the tide of enemies and rescue us." The girl is dreaming. In the morning, Lot and Morganette in the castle also invited Altria. By the way, there are 3 reasons for inviting her. First, this is also a sister-in-law anyhow, the brother-in-law must always take care of a little bit. Second, with Altria eating next to it, it really makes people appetite and eat 2 more pieces of bread. As for the third, Lot and Morgan are the kind of guys who like to eat all kinds of delicious food, but the appetite is very average. Every time 2 people eat, there will be a lot of food left in the end. So, of course, I was going to find Altria to eat up all the food. "Your Majesty Morgan, what happened to you today? Why is it unnatural to eat?" Altria is professional in doing food. She watched Morgan's swallowing movements a little unnaturally, and said with some wonder. Hearing what she said, Lot and Morgan's eyes were a little unnatural. Morgan also gave Lot a fierce look. "Luscious, you guy, can't you put your endurance in a serious place?" "Oh shit, very sour." "The sea breeze was a bit strong last night, and it was a bit cold." Morgan thought about it, then explained. Lot looked at and smiled in his heart. This Morgan, the ability to make lies is getting bigger and bigger. "I found out the reason casually." "Bastard, it's not because of you that I am doing this." Morgan looked at Lot and gave him a stern look. At the same time, he stomped hard. Lot said he was innocent. "I have obviously acted very naturally. How can you still see it?" This Morgan is really too scary. In order to avoid hurting his feet again, Lot hurriedly turned away from the subject and said to Morgan, "By the way, Morgan, do you say that King Lydicuan will agree to our terms?" "They will definitely agree," Morgan said confidently. "Yes, as long as the situation he is facing is dangerous enough, he will definitely nod and agree. As long as he is a normal person, he will definitely know the difference between annihilation of a country and loss of property." Lot agreed with Morgan's words. Your Majesty Morgan, if we do this, are they bullying him at a disadvantage?" At this moment, Altria asked Morgan with a slightly red face. As a knight with a sense of justice, she still had some opinions about the behavior of Morgan and Lot. Although Morgan threatened not to feed her several times, she still couldn't help expressing her opinion. Hearing her thinking like this, Lot secretly said in his heart, Sure enough, Altria is a qualified knight, not a qualified king. She is an idealized existence." Sure enough, King Arthur didn't understand people's hearts. Then, after speaking, he glanced at Morgan's chest. "Well, sure enough, my wife understands people's hearts." Morgan nodded subconsciously. But then, she felt something was wrong again. "Why, I always feel that this dog is staring at his chest." "You understand the human heart? What exactly do you mean by understanding the human heart?" "I always feel that your mind reading is so rude." She complained like this in her heart, but on the surface, she said to Altria, "Aid for the weak, that is what a knight should do, and a true king must first consider the interests of his country." Altria, Wang has to bear the expectations of the entire country. You can't act simply because of the justice in your heart. Although I won't let my sister become a king again, it's still necessary to teach her. Chapter 18 Morgan, Xiaojia. Do you want to recognize a foster father? Second more. But, the spirit of the night? Altria still disagrees with Morgan. So I said I'm not a knight, and I don't care about it at all. Morgan put his arms around his chest, allowing Lot to see the curvature of Morgan's heart more clearly. Damn, this is really gathering people's hearts. Lot was watching, thinking secretly in his heart. Hearing Lot's heartfelt voice, Morgan straightened his chest even more arrogantly. Hey, Goozy, that would be great if you like it. So happy in his heart, Morgan continued to look at Altria and said, compared with the ethereal spirit, the interests of the people are of course the most important. Well, I got it. Altria was silent for a while, then nodded silently. Did not continue to say anything. His Majesty Morgan may not be an ethical monarch. However, she is definitely a monarch who will satisfy the people. Altria thought to herself in her heart. Then she turned and left. Morgan grabbed Lot's palm and said with a smile, how about, Luke, there is nothing wrong with my statement, right? Of course. Lot certainly liked Morgan's statement. Like Morgan, at first it came from the appearance, but now it is more of the conformity of the three views. Of course, it would be better if she could let me catch more fish. It is impossible to fish. A happy smile appeared on Morgan's face. Then she looked up at Lot. Like dogs, at first it stemmed from his talent. And now, of course I like everything about him. On tiptoe, Morgan wanted to kiss Lot. 3-2. Just when the lips of the two were about to touch again, the door of the castle opened again. Your Majesty, the messenger of King Xiaojia is here again. Altria blinked, looking at Morgan on tiptoe. How many times did I bump into this? Altria thought for a moment. Then, she immediately turned around stiffly. I didn't see anything, she said to Lot and Morgan. As soon as she turned around, her face was covered with cold sweat. To die, am I going to be silenced? Foster father, righteous brother, your lovely righteous brother may be coming to the end of life today. Altria thought that if he bumped into the intimate manners of Majesty Morgan and Majesty Lot at one time, it could be said to be a coincidence and fooled. However, I have bumped into it not just once or twice. To be reasonable, Altria felt that if she was in Lot and their situation now, she would probably be killed. Morgan picked up the staff from the table, and Lot came to the corner and picked up a knight's sword. Come on, Altria, come here, we too have a good thing for you. Lot and Morgan Ziki beckoned to Altria. Your Majesty, Altria said in a panic. What reward are you willing to give us? After finishing cleaning up Altria, Lot and Morgan began to let the messenger deliver the letter. However, the two of them were still angry at the moment. Seeing this messenger, his eyes were very bad. Damn, it's all because of you. If I don't squeeze more oil for you this time, I will never give up. The quail is looking for peas in the crop, the flesh of the egret is split on the legs, and the mosquitoes are fat in the abdomen. If I don't take away all the treasures of your country, my surname will not be Luo. Me too. Morgan nodded approvingly. Then, she remembered something was wrong. Lot, when was his surname Luo? Forget it. I also follow his last name. If he changes his surname, I have to change his surname too. In short, it's the same as what he said. Now that the King Xiaojia begged me, I will squeeze his oil and water. After the husband and wife thought about it, their eyes looking at the messenger turned into the shape of gold coins. The messenger looked extremely flustered. Why do I feel that these two people are going to eat themselves? Can the things given by Our Majesty satisfy them? Do you have to add more money? If Lot and Morgan could read the heart of this messenger, they would definitely nod their heads together. Yes, there is more money. Finally, the messenger walked out with a cry of tears. It's hard to imagine how a big man with a big beard and a tall man about 1.8 meters tall was crying by Lot and Morgan on a run. Sorry, Your Majesty. I'm sorry, Your Majesty. Passing by, Galahad heard the messenger's mumbling and couldn't help but look at him. What did this guy go through? Maybe no matter what time and space you are in, His Majesty Morgan is a scary existence. He secretly speculated in his heart. Lancelot was already firmly by him, and he could never break free. In this way, if you go to King Xiaojia, you don't have to worry about what will happen to him and Princess Skirny. Galahad thought, Lancelot is now a perfect Kazorkani food, Zongtsai. No one will be in heat with a Zongtsai. Then, he walked to Morgan and Lot's palace, and saw Morgan and Lot's elation. I felt a little sympathy for the messenger who had just passed by. Your Majesty Morgan, Your Majesty Lot, our army is ready to go anytime, he said to Lot and Morgan. Under Lot's order, Galahad and Kay assembled the army quickly. The horses and the forage are ready, and the search for the ships is complete. They can cross the sea and enter Scotland at any time to help King Xiaojia to fight. However, after Galahad finished saying this, he saw Morgan's eyebrows frown slightly. What's wrong? Is there anything wrong with what I just said? While he was thinking like this, Morgan opened his mouth and said to Galahad, From now on, when you want to address the two of us, remember to address King Lot first." "What?" There was a surprised expression on Galahad's face. "Is this still Morgan? Doesn't she have to fight for the first place in everything?" Morgan's face was very indifferent. "These are what the dog deserves." Segouzi didn't want this position himself, and even wanted to fish more. "However, I want to establish his position in everyone's minds. Close the door, and when there are only two people left with Segouzi, I am the queen. But I want to be on top of Segouzi. However, when in front of other people, it's different." Morgan thought in his heart. "Good fellow, Morgan. Are you trying to scare the little Canadian kid stupid?" Lot was a little surprised when he watched Morgan say this. When Lot thought so, Morgan stopped talking. This is true too. Galahad was in Morgan's mind now, that it was just a child who was at most 8 years old. "Although I don't know how he grows up." "Those soldiers are ready?" "Then we are ready to go." Lot looked at Galahad and asked again. "Yes, you can go anytime," Galahad said seriously. "Then I will wait and see," Lot said to him. Then, he thought of another person and asked Galahad, "By the way, Xiaojia, how about Lancelot?" "Your Majesty, he is fine," Galahad replied seriously. "Is it good?" "Yes, it's tied well," Galahad said seriously. This Galahad, the hatred against his father is still so great. Alas, this is very difficult to change, and even the subsequent schoolgirls have been deeply affected. It can only be said that when I was growing up, the lack of fatherly love had much influence. Morgan listened with some sympathy in his heart. Of course, not to Lancelot. She still doesn't know the specific manufacturing process of Galahad. In her mind, Galahad was still a child abandoned by Lancelot. Scumbag. No matter how you treat it, it's taken for granted. Now she was about to become a mother, and the pity for Galahad in her heart became even more serious. "This child is suffering. Forget it. I'll take a look at the army first." Lot went to see the situation of the army. Morgan looked at Galahad with maternal eyes. Then, when Lot left, Morgan said to Galahad, "Galahad, don't worry, no matter what you do to your father, I will support him." Galahad heard Morgan say this and bowed his head slightly, a little embarrassed. Looking at him like this, Morgan's maternal love spread even more. "From now on, you call Lot a foster father." Morgan thought for a while, then said to Galahad, "What?" Galahad showed a confused expression. "Wait, what are you talking about? Your Majesty Morgan want me to recognize His Majesty Lot as a foster father?" "If you look at it purely by age, His Majesty Lot is not a few years older than me." "Oh, no, His Majesty Morgan knows where I came from." "She knew that if I were born normally, I would be dozens of years younger than them." "Your mother raised you and I am definitely not qualified to be your adoptive mother. However, I think Lot should be qualified enough to be your adoptive father," Morgan said to Galahad. On the one hand, she has sympathy for Xiaojia. On the other hand, she also hopes that Galahad can completely belong to Camelot. This Galahad didn't know what to do to reply. Morgan would not give him this opportunity to refute. "Okay, things are settled like this. Well, when Lot comes back, you come to see your adoptive father," Morgan said to Galahad. Lot, who was still looking at the army at the moment, suddenly had an extra son without knowing it. As for the Lancelot, if he knew he had a son, and his son had a father, he didn't know how he would react. Morgan thinks about it, and it feels very interesting.